it, and then that should go directly to our account.
Let's have a look. There you go.
Lovely.
So,
Thank you very much. Apologies.
No, that's all right. So the talk we're going to sort of go through today is not about some of those previous stories. The TEDx that I did in Liverpool last year, I would definitely recommend having a look at. That's probably more about the old version of me and stuff that I did pre this year. This year, has really been a focus on VALA. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff we're doing with VALA, but also some of the themes that need to be solved, quite complicated themes. I am going to touch on mental health and self-harm and suicide in this talk, which I know is quite dark, but I think it's really important not to shy away from the big issues. And some of the stuff we're having to deal with a company like VALA, is really very much innovation at the fringes and trying to solve some of those issues that occur at the fringes of society. So just as a quick warning for anybody listening, but also anybody that's going to watch this video, we are going to kind of touch on some quite dark issues. But just really quickly, I think it's really important to look at where I've come from. And in 1996, when I was leaving school, I think if you'd asked me when I was in my teens, I thought I was, going to end up being a postman or something like that. I'm from a town in the southwest of England where, unemployment was incredibly high, and, drug abuse was an issue that kind of swirled around all the time. There were some really dark places in our youth growing up. Here I am. So this is my last day at school. So this is I'm up there, and this is Pete leaving school, having got 3 GCSEs, drama, art, and something else. And really kind of full of hope, actually, and full of big ideas to go and deliver the mail. That didn't happen. So what happened instead was I was given a break by some incredible software engineers who took me on as an apprentice at a helicopter manufacturer, which is very strange. And so I found myself for a couple of years really immersed in some quite cutting edge technology. We were doing a lot of work in virtual reality. We were doing a lot of work with data and data-driven design. And that one opportunity that I was given by that one individual really sent me on a journey that was unexpected. And so that journey is now kind of carried on over the last 20 plus years through various roles. The thing that's been constant throughout all of that is data and designing products that are data driven, and the nature of that data has changed. So the interest that I have in that has not changed, but the nature of the type of data that we have to deal with has changed significantly. And we can look at that through the lens of certain themes that have occurred. So, when I was starting out, we were really just getting online. We were using dial-up modems. It was taking 10, 15 minutes for web pages to load. Things were much simpler in that regard. There wasn't much demand. There also wasn't much pressure on us to do huge whizzy things. Then we got to Web 2, which was really after the kind of dot-com bubble burst, where technology started to get a bit quicker and things started to get a bit more exciting. Social media between 2004, really, the early days of social media, and 2008 was when things got really complicated. And that was to do with, social constructs. And I don't mean social as in the kind of platforms, but the implications of this type of technology and the widespread implications of this kind of technology really started to become apparent even back then, and now are kind of even more obvious and prevalent. Smartphone, and I think this again was like the big change for me. Like, we all think of these as phones. I had a phone in 2000 and I could make calls and text messages, and that was about it. In 2008, when the first smartphones started, making their way into people's pockets, that's when stuff got weird, like really weird. But if you think about it like that, the iPhones and the Androids and the Huawei's that we take for granted now, really kind of 12 years old in its current form, which is insane, really. So they're kind of teenagers. Quantified self was really interesting. And I don't know who's kind of aware of the term quantified self. It was really when we started to collect, data in a slightly different way. So, wearables and internet things. from phones mainly. And then sort of for the last 3 or 4 years, plus the industry's kind of fetishized and started to talk about AI as if it's the next big thing. It's really been around for a very, very long time, but it's become kind of the theme, the topic. But I think really and truly, if we look at it, what we actually mean is because of 2008 to 2015, we've started to generate enough data to train algorithms to do smarter things. And that's really, I think, what we mean by AI now, in the way that I think about it, is it just means we can do a lot more than we used to be able to do using algorithms. And we can automate a lot more. I tend to, and here's a good tip for you all, I tend to use RPA, robotic process automation, as the term rather than artificial intelligence, which is something that upsets and confuses people and has many, 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 many layers to it. No one really on the planet at the moment is doing AI in the way that perhaps, you know, the media paint a picture of. DeepMind possibly. OpenAI is another business that's kind of interesting. There are a few out there. Benevolent AI, a really interesting company based in London that do some fascinating stuff with data, but it's algorithmic processing. So, like, I think the other thing before I get to the, you know, the meat of what we're doing with VALA and interesting applications of AI and social themes that AI and data can try and solve is. And again, it's a kind of a tip for you, is that there's a part in my career when I look back on it where I kind of thought I knew it all. Actually, I was happiest at the beginning of my career, not really knowing anything. There's a bit in the middle there where, you know, it was insane. Like, we were doing like really cool stuff and we were going nuts and just chucking technology at the wall and just, oh, it was crazy. Thought I knew it all. In reality, the technology industry moves so quickly, and product design and data-driven technology moves so quickly that actually, you know, what was hot yesterday is out of date tomorrow. And we never can quite predict what's going to happen next, which is ironic given that, you know, I work in predictive technology. So I'm now more comfortable, even as the CEO of a growing organization, sort of carrying this feeling of not really knowing very much. So I consider myself to be a novice after 24 years, and that's kept me curious, and it's kept me, you know, interested, and it's really kind of given me, I think, a better grounding than where I was in the middle of my career to date, which is not arrogant, but kind of naive, I think. I think the other thing that has played out over the last 20 years, and this leads us interestingly into my decision to get to VALA and be part of this new business, is that my journey, my career journey, but my personal journey is also one of ups and downs. And, you know, when I thought I knew it all, actually, if I look back, that was probably one of the most unhappiest times of my life. I was suffering from a very deep depression and various substance abuses, and really kind of flat and low. And but then, you know, there have been other parts in the journey that I've been really high, and everybody is on a journey we know nothing about. And one of the things I wrote about in my book was really, which came out in 2016, it's very out of date now, but one of the themes in the book was really that we should not assume to know the people that we're building software and technology for, because everybody is on a journey we know nothing about. There are no archetypes. And I'm fairly sure in your classes and lectures at some point, or businesses that you go and work in, someone's going to pull out a pen portrait of a user and say, that's who we're building this stuff for. That's our archetype. It's nonsense. It's absolute trash, because every single person has been on a journey, is on a journey that we cannot know anything about. And that for me was one of the greatest lessons that I learned by looking at myself and saying, nobody is a pen portrait. Nobody is an archetype. We're all individual. We're all human beings. And that's, again, something that I still upset clients and things with now, is just saying, look, just stop pretending to know the people that you are pushing technology into the path of. Oh dear, what's happened? Why have I stopped sharing?
I can still see your screen, Pete, which is white. Here we go. Now you've got just your desktop.
There we go. How's
There you
that?
go.
Back.
Right.
So the other thing that I just want to kind of, before we get to the meat and veg, I just want to pull that picture back up. So the other thing that happened, oh mate, I don't know what's going on here. The other thing that happened is 4 of the people in that picture from school aren't with us anymore. So 4 of the people in that picture are no longer with us. 1 of them from natural causes, and 3 of them because they took their own lives. 4 in, or 3 in 30. I mean, tragic, really. And that, again, was something, when I started to find out about this, was really something that wanted to drive me forward. So look, the more of my peers who left me, the more I realized I needed to do something with the gifts that I was given and the career that I've had that makes some impact. And, you know, to not do things better, but do better things. And that's something, that's a mantra that's really stuck with me. This idea that we should be doing better things with technology, and we can do better things with technology than perhaps we have done in the past. VALA approached me last year to come and be the CEO. They're an online doctor on demand business. There are a number of them around. However, this business is slightly different. And I'd already worked with them as a consultant to help them draft and look at the roadmap for the next 5 or 6 years. And they said, look, you've got a pretty clear vision of what you want to do with our business. And the founder said, why don't you just come in and run it? And so I took the leap of faith last year to go and run an online GP business, or a doctor on demand business. And I find myself this year in a pandemic. So again, this idea of predictability, forget it, nothing's predictable. I thought we were going to do tech stuff this year, and now I find myself CEOing a business in a pandemic. So, you know, just have to roll with things. VALA is a really interesting business. They really look at keeping people well rather than treating you when you're sick, just treating you when you're sick. You know, mitigation of harm is something that we're really focused on. So that is, you know, helping you understand through your data, you know, what your exposure to air pollution is. Restorative care is something that really grounds the GPs and the doctors. You know, physiological stress. What are the things that are affecting you as an individual that will make you sick or get you to that place where you are sick? And instaurative care. So how do we help you stay well by giving you strategies that help, you know, boost your mood or change the way that you feel, or things like that. So we can do all the stuff that a normal set of GPs can do, but actually we're much more focused as an organization on keeping people well. We fit, I'm going to skip over this one, it's a bit of an investor slide, but they love this kind of stuff. We fit much more in the space with businesses like Hello Self. Hello Self is a kind of online counseling service, and we actually partner with them for our mental health support. But, you know, we find ourselves less in the position of competing with the NHS and things like that, and much more in a kind of life support system for people. And there aren't that many businesses in this space. I'll let you into some secrets later after I've asked some big questions about some of the stuff that we're going to be doing with a very interesting type of data. Certainly a type of data that I didn't walk into this business thinking we were going to be using, that really is quite controversial and puts us in quite a disruptive space. And again, I think that's something that you need to ask as future software, you know, owners and developers is, you know, what's the disruption that you're creating? Is that disruption good? Is it bad? You know, what are the ethical implications of what you're doing? We've really had to sweat quite hard this year to decide whether the stuff that we're going to be doing, you know, how ethical is the stuff that we're going to be doing? And that's really my job. The problem we're trying to solve as an organization is, you know, keeping people feeling healthy, keeping people feeling well, so that we can keep them free from stress, sickness, self-harm, and away from those dark places like 3 of my friends from school ended up in. That's really the goal of a business like VALA. And the question that I have, which I'm grappling with, is, you know, is our health, and our mental health, is it too complicated for an algorithm to own and support? Is it too complicated, or is there a future on the horizon where technology really makes things that harm us so transparent that actually we can start to shape our destiny in slightly different ways, give people back the ability to own their own destiny and the power to own their own health. That's what we're trying to solve. In 2016, I ended up, or 2018, this one's from, I was all over various newspapers and things. I mean, we thought that things like chatbots were the answer to a lot of this. Oh, we'll create little chatbots and people can talk to them online, and it'll help people with their mental health, and it'll help people when they're in crisis moments and things like that. That was me. Like, I was part of that conversation, and the newspapers loved it and they lapped it up. And again, I think some of the stuff that we were doing was very groundbreaking at the time. In hindsight, I now know the limitations of some of this technology, and working with care professionals, actual human beings, I now understand, a little bit more about the complexities of human health and well-being. And perhaps, things that I was saying 4 years ago were not naive, but, probably maybe even premature for what the technology can do. But yeah, I've been on that journey. I've been through it. Suicide accounts for, 1.5 of deaths worldwide, 800,000 deaths from suicide annually. And it's a difficult topic, I get it. And the reason I use it is it's something that I'm very passionate about supporting and reducing. And even as a kind of care online business, like, it's one of we talk about pandemics this year, and we talk about, things that take lives naturally. There are unnatural things that, take a significant amount of lives that we have, as society to be able to try and solve. 80% of those lives lost occur in low income and middle income communities. Poverty is one of the biggest killers of people in this country. And as healthcare providers, we have to think about that. And as technology providers, we have to think very, very carefully about the affordability of the stuff that we're building. Look, I'm not going to read all of this. There's a lot of words on here, but what I'm trying to say is that in many, many cases, what we've discovered as a business is that most people don't even have an insight into their own health and well-being. So to get people to come to you and ask for help when they get sick, or when they're feeling particularly, grotty or rough, like, that's a massive battle, because most people don't even realize that they're in need of care and help until they get to that place. And that's where, some of the technology that I've mastered over the years is I think, possibly some of those answers. The issues are exacerbated by the fact that, even my doctors, they don't know what's going on with people. They will only be able to know and care. It doesn't matter if it's online or offline, in hospitals, GP clinics, or telemedicine consultations like we provide. The doctor only knows most of the time what you tell them. And so there's a lot of information that they're lacking in order to be able to help you and give you support that you actually require. So look, every technically driven mental health and health support system, it's got to be affordable, has to be affordable, has to be directed at the causes of the issues that make us sick, stressed, and unwell. Has to be in a language that helps people approach it. And a lot of the technology that's out there at the moment is unapproachable. I was on a podcast recently for NatWest, and I was telling the story about my dad, who had started getting letters from HMRC saying, Mr. T, you've not, filed your whatever it is. And I said, Dad, what are you playing at, mate? Like, you've got to get this stuff sorted out. And he said, well, I was filling out the forms online, and I get to the end of a lot of the forms on the HMRC website, and it asks me if I'm a robot. And they get to the little capture thing. Are you a robot? And the logic of the person that designed that is you click on it, and then you select the pine tree, the palm trees and the traffic lights and stuff like that, and then you prove you're not a robot and you move forward. My old man, 78 years old, he was just going, I'm not a robot, so I was just shutting the browser. So the language of this stuff needs to be incredibly approachable. Like, we have to stop putting stupid technology out there from stupid people who design stupid things. So approachability, you have to teach people about their own risks. And you have to empower the trained professionals, people that work for me, to know and learn about the individuals better. What are the major causes of mental health and ill health in the world and our country at the moment? Losing your job is a massive one, and this year it's been huge. And our doctors I've focused them and our team very much on some of these things. Losing your job, is a massive cause of ill health. Debt is a massive cause of ill health, and self-harm and suicide. Shame of losing your job, of getting into debt, is a massive issue in this country right now. Infidelity, we see so much of this topic that is neglected by the healthcare professionals because they're looking for conditions. They never talk to you about the other stuff, which leads to divorce, which leads to losing your family. All these things drive people into very, very bad, very stressful, very unfortunate places. Addiction, drugs, alcohol, porn, these things are so readily available and accessible right now, to ages from very young to very old, that we have massive problems with addiction in this country, but we don't talk about it. Fear is a huge issue. People are scared because they're being bullied. We don't talk about bullying as a form of health erosion. It's a kind of social construct. Social media, I go back to my original diagram that talks about all the things that have happened. For me, social media, for all the good it's done, and it is an incredibly powerful piece of technology, has created an almost incurable level of shame, bullying, fear, all these things, massive, absolutely massive. And as care professionals using technology, we have to factor these things in now. Doctors have to now think about the effects of social media on their patients, which is crazy when you think about it. Toxic masculinity, silence, not talking about the things that make us sick, ashamed, the issues that affect us is a big killer of people. How do we start to build technology that helps people unpack some of this? So these are the questions that we're having to ask as a business, that you're going to have to ask as future technology builders and product owners. Who asks these questions? Not that many people. You go in, you surface the use cases, you create the technology. No one's asking these questions. Losing someone else to suicide, loneliness, grief, that voice in your head that says you're worthless, society, all of these things are often overlooked by the technology industry and healthcare providers because they're difficult things to talk about. They're often overlooked. These are the things that make us sick. These are the things that make us unwell. And these are the things that businesses like VALA are starting to try to chip away at. We're a healthcare provider underpinned by technology, big data, and AI that's looking for solving a lot of these issues. Really fascinating. And some other stuff that we're going to talk about. Can algorithms get me out of debt? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, probably. But again, it's really down to the banks to help with some of this stuff. Can algorithms stop me cheating and producing shame? No, I think we've got a job to do to help educate people with some of that stuff. Stop me losing my job. One of the things that I feel most ashamed about is for the last 10 years, I was working with large organizations, helping them codify people's jobs. So, a lot of the algorithmic stuff that I was creating for robotic process automation and, helping support healthcare provision, whatever it is, was designed to skinny down workforces. And now when you look at something like, the year that we've just had and the amount of jobs being lost and so on and so forth, it's we got to ask the big questions now, the ethical questions about what kind of technology we want to be spewing out into the world. Is this technology going to chip away at a whole bunch of people's jobs, make somebody in a business a ton of money by, creating efficiencies, but ultimately, we could be creating a bit of a healthcare disaster in the future by codifying people's jobs. Stop me being lonely, stop a loved one dying. Again, these are the questions that we should be asking when we're creating pieces of technology. These are the questions that we have to ask with a business like VALA. I consulted this year on a case, a really difficult case. I'm not going to go into great detail, but go and have a look at the just Google Molly Russell and look at some of the casework. I mean, it's horrifying and just sobering and grim, really. Is a 14-year-old girl who immersed herself in the kind of content on readily available social media platforms that no 14-year-old should ever be immersed in, is the answer to this. And again, you're like, where are the algorithms to stop that happening? And the problem was that the people that built the platforms like Instagram are not the primary targets of, bullying, racism, sexism, disability discrimination, mental health, complicated mental health issues. They're designed by people who don't have any empathy towards the possible issue they're going to create. And so build your businesses, build your technology with empathy baked into it, or become a court case in 15 years, like, the unfortunate case of Molly Russell. We have to think about this stuff. So stop it. Like, again, these are the questions. Can we stop people being fallible? Can we stop people being human? Can we give people a sense of purpose? Like, oh God, can technology keep me healthy? Well, yeah, now we're getting somewhere, because this is the kind of stuff that I can help to try and solve. There are a lot of societal issues and a lot of conversations we need to have, in schools and with our children and so on and so forth. But actually, there are some things that we can control, and there are some things that we can do. So the reason, I've put all this down there, I specialize in the kind of technology, and have done for 20 years, that predicts what people are going to do and looks at people's behavior. Give me enough of your behavioral information and your behavioral data. I can cross-reference it with a dozen other people, and I'll predict with about 90% accuracy what you're going to do. And no two ways about it. Like, the stuff that we're producing as an industry, data, whether it's health, finance, sport, whatever it is, betting, gambling, it doesn't matter. Like, we can predict what you're going to do before you're going to do it. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And in some ways, a lot of this came from advertising. All the technology that we're using is just kind of stochastic modeling that came from an advertising industry that could predict what you're going to click on before you've clicked on it. And so a lot of those things that I've just talked about and those big questions I've asked, if you ask those questions, then you look for the technology, you'll find that there are things out there that could probably start to, really chip away and stop some of those issues occurring. Ethics is an interesting space. Where can we get that data from? I could monitor everything that you do on your phone. And I don't know how many people on the video right now, have got iPhones, but I know where your data is, and if I can come through the Wi-Fi and look at that, yeah, I can do that. And I've done it before in conferences where, on day one of a conference, we'd looked at the data on people's phones, and then on day two, when I'd done my presentation was about the data that we'd learned about the day before from a room of 300 people. And let me tell you, they were horrified. They were horrified at the intrusion into their most precious private information, and it was wrong, and I get it, but I was making my point. My point is, you produce so much psychographic data on that thing in your pocket that's only 12 years old that I can predict most of the things that you're going to do. However, I'm not going to do that because of the ethical implications and the legal implications. But more importantly than legal, the ethical implications of doing that. It's a modern surveillance technology. I could save people from dying with that information. I'm not allowed to. The advertising industry is allowed to use it to sell you stuff, and they do it every single day. But I'm not allowed to use it to save your life. So there you go. The answer to the health and the mental health crisis is not conversational chatbots. It's not having us encourage everybody to openly share all their deepest, darkest secrets online. It's not that. And there's a lot of people that bang the drum on social media, about mental health and exposing it and like, let's all get talking about it. It's like, you do that, you make it someone else's burden. It's not monitoring us to predict what we're going to do before we've done it, because that's unethically or ethically quite dubious. Possible answer is in combining all that data with algorithmic processes and qualified care professionals, qualified people who can help you unpack and learn about the data that you're offering them. You offered your data to care professionals or trained professionals and empower them. They will help you find the answers to a lot of your problems. It's what we're doing with VALA. It's called hallucinogenics. So, and this is a word that, you know, it's actually a concept from the 70s. It's a social science construct that I've been a studier and a scholar of for many, 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 many years. The concept of hallucinogenics is about helping people, you know, with the cause, not the condition. When you get to the point where you're sick, or you're stood on the edge of a railway track or the top of a cliff or a bridge, or you're feeling unwell, or you're, you know, you've lost your job or whatever it is, it's kind of a bit too late. And quite a lot of the technology and quite a lot of the industries in the world right now are there to help people when they're at the last point, not helping them before they get to that point. So hallucinogenic technology is something that, you know, we are focusing very heavily on with our healthcare provision at VALA. And I'll give you a really interesting example. So VALA is a business, and this is where we get to the kind of, you know, what is it exactly? It's online right now, got about 40 care professionals, GPs, counselors, midwives, dietitians. It's a marketplace of regulated care professionals. You go on, you book a video appointment if you want to speak to somebody, either when you're sick or you're not feeling quite right. That's the core of the business. That's what they do. That's what they've always done, even before I took over. They do an amazing job. They're just an amazing bunch of very caring, qualified professionals. We can deliver medication to your door. We can do pathology work, all the stuff that you would expect from a care business. This is where we start to get to some really interesting data, data that people volunteer to let us look at. We're launching in January. We've been developing it for a couple of months now, what we refer to as epigenetics. Epigenetics, and I'll give you I'll show you a demo of it in a minute. Epigenetics is your DNA, it's your genetic makeup, but epigenetics focuses on all the stuff that can be modified. So all the bits of your life and lifestyle that we can tweak and help you change to make you feel better, healthier, more energized, more able to cope with stress and the crap that life throws at you. And it's scientific, it's data driven. There's no kind of hoaxy quack type, you know, holistic medicine going on here. This is big data driven healthcare. And it shows our doctors things about you that actually you wouldn't normally know. It helps us to work out what kind of exercise you would react well to. And that, what I mean by that is, some people, just from their genetics, I can tell you right now whether cardio is going to work for you, or, you know, you need a more impact type exercise, or actually, if you're not somebody who likes exercise at all, you know, we can help you find, based on some of your genetic information, things that will be gentle but help you, you know, lose weight or get fitter or whatever, without the preconception of what exercise can be. We can help you find the right supplements to mix into your, you know, your diet and your lifestyle. And the epigenetic information that we're getting will look at genetic abnormalities and say, do you know what? Maybe you do need to just put a bit of vitamin X, Y, or Z in there so that, you know, it'll perk you up and help you cope. And these are hallucinogenic, you know, things that we can start to do way before you get to the point where you're feeling so rubbish that, you know, you start looking at other options, unfortunate options. We're also doing some of this stuff so that we don't have to prescribe people medicine. And that's really important. We don't want people on medication. We want people to help, you know, make their lifestyle adjustments without the need for pharmaceutical care. Translating this is the really interesting bit. You know, we're translating conversations between care professionals and individuals, very complex conversations. We're looking at, you know, natural language processing to break those conversations down, to really feed into that. How do we start to automate the content that you are subjected to that help you make some of those decisions rather than codifying the care? How do we create health and data insights for you that are in your language and easy to understand? And this is where I think we've been very smart with the technology we're creating. This is the app that will, an example of the app that's coming out in January. It even looks at your risk of SARS-style viruses, COVID-type viruses, and your genetic ability to cope with a virus like COVID-19 if you were to get sick with it. So we'll be able to tell people, you know, thankfully there's vaccines and stuff coming out now, but, you know, and maybe we're too late with some of this stuff. I don't know, maybe it's 6 months too late, but there will be another pandemic at some point. We'll be able to tell you how you're going to cope with it, what kind of risk you are. We will look at your mental health. So we'll be able to take you right down to a level of, you know, how you are genetically predisposed to deal with stress, give you information. It's genetic, but these are all the genes that you can modify, and that's what's really important. These are all the things that you can change that will help you to make sure that you are, you know, moving your bars from red to green, and making like 100 small adjustments, giving people, you know, tracking on other data that they presume to give to us or want to give to us, so we can factor in, you know, fitness and things like that. It's going to be it's a fascinating extension of something that we've been doing for a while, but actually we're making it more contemporary now, and via, you know, that one very simple test. I think, oh, I've got it here. Look, yeah. It's as you know, it's as basic as sending people out a tube. We send you out one of these. You donate us your saliva, and then 5 or 6 days later, we give you all this data about the things that you can start to modify in your lifestyle. And again, it's a type of data that I hadn't had that much exposure to previously, but fascinating when you start to think about the issues that I've just described. And a lot of the issues that I just described are lifestyle factors that are exacerbated by stress. All these things right here are things that we can do to kind of lower that stress. We're also rolling out the business across, you know, the right kind of devices. So we're trying to make sure that, you know, the consultation layer is as accessible as possible for the biggest possible audience, affordably. And again, that's really, really important. And I mentioned that right at the start. It's no good having apps and websites and things like that that's so complicated that my 78-year-old dad can't, you know, interact with a professional, but also understand his data better. So we're breaking the barriers for access right down. So we're giving you very, very simple tests that you can learn about in very, very simple apps. And then speak to care professionals on very, very simple devices. That's the game plan for the future of healthcare. And again, this is also about empowering the clinicians. So we're using natural language processing during the consultations to help the clinicians understand more about what's going on with the individual when you chat to them. We're doing things like the note writing. So doctors won't be sitting there when you're talking to them, or dietitians or counselors or whatever, taking notes. And so only focusing on you for 50% of the time during a consultation. We have a machine that takes the notes for them, then they go back and curate. So again, the use of passive natural language processing, AI, if you want to refer to it as that, technology is exactly that. It's passive. It's not codifying the care, it's helping the clinician be more efficient. We're doing real-time subtitles so that people can speak in a language that's native to them, and have that surface to the doctor, so that the doctor, you know, you can speak in Urdu and they will see it in English, or vice versa. Like, we just want to make sure that everybody can be comfortable being themselves. And the other thing that we're going to start to look at next year, and I say start to look at because we've not accessed the thinking behind this yet, is how do we prescribe apps rather than medication? If you're having trouble sleeping, you know, why give you sleeping medication? Why not prescribe Headspace or an app that might be right for you to help you kind of sleep? So hallucinogenics, that's the stuff. So everything that everything, you know, I was talking about, the problems, the big problems to solve, we're bringing it right down to treating the causes, go right back to the very basic stuff. Treat the causes, stop people getting sick, not treat people when they are sick, which we can do, but we'd rather you were with us, you know, on the whole journey. Help before we know you need it. So I'm just going to give you a final thought, right? And this is something that I've learned throughout the entire journey, from 96 to here. And it's for me the kind of culmination of everything. what I discovered over the last 20 plus years is there are smart people and there are smart businesses and there is smart technology in abundance. There is, you know, caring industries and caring people and caring friends and so on and so forth, you know, in abundance. In the middle there somewhere is causation. So helping people, you know, do that. What we need to do is create businesses. What we need to do is create technology that's smart enough to care. And so care for people and respect for people is probably the most important factor of technology moving forward from this point onwards. So being smart and caring are the two most important things that I would say everybody needs to go away and you know, really truly understand how you do that, what it means, using modern data and technology to make carers more efficient, or make banks more empathetic, or make, you know, social network platforms more understanding of the issues that affect people like Molly. And also just making sure that you're armed with the right questions to ask people that need your help and support. So being smart enough to care was really the punchline, you know, for this talk today, and something that I want you all to have some time and think about. Thank you very much for listening to me waffling on for a good 45 minutes about me, VALA, and the issues that we're trying to solve. And there's no applause because it's a video-based conference.
Thank you very much, Pete. I appreciate that. I assume everybody's still here. Everybody's been particularly quiet and off camera. But I guess, Pete, are you okay to answer any questions?
Yeah, for sure.
I guess I'll open up the floor to you guys. If anyone's got any questions, I think, Robin, you might have had your hand up there potentially. I don't know if that was maybe a round of applause or a hands up. But anybody got any questions for Pete? This is that awkward silence where nobody kind of wants to jump in first. I might start getting the ball rolling, really, Pete. I guess from a perspective of, I try and help some students, you know, get into their first role within tech, and, you know, artificial intelligence, or RPA, as you might put it, it's often quite a sought after sector that people want to get into. You know, outside of them just generally doing their software development, I mean, are there any particular areas of study that you might suggest that people can focus on or get into that might help them break into artificial intelligence or robotic process automation, as you put it?
I mean, yeah, so just so you know, RPA and AI are very different things, right? But most AI that people are producing in industry is just RPA. There's not that much AI out there, really. It's algorithmic processing of data. I wrote in, there was in the book that I published, there's a whole piece in the beginning where I was talking about people that worked for me for many, many years, like software developers. I would make them go off and read ethics. I would not make them, but I would encourage them to go off and study, you know, topics outside of technology. And I think the industries are now starting to really go like, how rounded are these people? They're smart, I get it. And that comes back to my diagram at the end. They're smart, they can do the tech bit, but like, how caring are these people? And it's perhaps something that's not taught. Perhaps it's something that we need to just focus on. So I definitely encourage people to go and, you know, study the arts and see how that kind of overlaps with big tech, AI, data processing, and so on and so forth. 100%. But I think the other thing that businesses are looking for is, you know, they're really starting to ask the question now about like, what motivates these people to be part of this industry? What is the motivation behind wanting to do automation or app development or this kind of technology? Those are questions that weren't asked, you know, 20 years ago when I started, or even 15 years ago when social media platforms were popping up all over the place. They just weren't even asked. Now I think there's a lot more focus on that. So I definitely work out what it is that's motivating you to join businesses that are building smart tech.
That's interesting. I think I would agree on that. You know, kind of engaging with a number of businesses who hire developers, you know, having these motivations, you know, your reason or your passion as to, you know, why do you want to become a developer? It isn't just about, you know, how solidly technically qualified are you these days. So no, that's good. I think that's good insight.
I think the other thing, just I would definitely encourage everybody to do is it. And again, if I think back about my like weird journey from the start, is if I could go back and ask myself a question, it would be, work out, even back then when I started and it might change by the way, but work out what the problem is you want to solve. And that could be a little problem, or it could be a really big problem. It could be an individual problem. It could be a societal issue. But what is the problem you want to solve? And you might not go into the job that helps solve that, but it might be the North Star that guides you down that very random path towards, where you're going to end up. Do you want to work in gaming? That's cool. That doesn't matter. But what is the problem that you want to solve with that? Do you want to work in healthcare? That's cool. Like, awesome. We'll take you. But, what is the problem that you want to solve? Like, what is the thing that you want to own and solve? Those are things that I would encourage people to do, is work out, what is it that they want to do with the talent that they've been given.
Sure. I mean, I guess as well for, longevity of your career, I think maybe if you do become a developer, first of all, it's fantastic and exciting, but if you're not working within that industry or solving that problem that you kind of maybe initially wanted to try and get involved in, your career may just become one of those other careers that you had previously. So I think, again, getting involved in your passion is something that you're actually actively interested in.
Yeah, definitely.
That's great. Anybody else? Anybody got any questions, Pete, while we've got him? Deadly silent. Pete, you must have done such a fantastic job. You covered absolutely everything you could possibly have covered.
It's all good. It's all good.
No questions. Pete, for maybe a couple more minutes. Any chances?
You can always share my contact details, and people can ask me questions if they think about it afterwards.
If you're happy with that, that's fantastic. I know sometimes people can be a little bit shy. But yeah, no questions. Pete, thank you very much. It was lovely to see you again. I'm sure we'll see you again in the future. I'll share all the videos and contents and the things that you've been involved as well, things that you've mentioned on the call. So appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
No worries at all.
Yes.
Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.